morning, students. The topic that we are going to start today is transactions. So what is a transaction? A set of SQL statements which can be executed as a single unit of work is treated as a transaction. That means all the SQL statements will be grouped together and they will be executed as a single unit of work instead of executing independently. Now, transactions are one of the very important features of any RDBMS systems. Transactions ensure integrity and consistency of data in a database after each insert, update or a delete operation. Transactions are very useful when database operations involve more than one table and data of these tables are interrelated. Example of transaction can be an insert statement and a select statement executed as a single unit of work, or an update statement and an insert statement executed as a single unit of work. So, the set of SQL statements, instead of executing independently, they execute as a single unit of work, and that is called transaction. You will properly understand this with the help of an example in the next slide. Just check the slide and consider the two tables, items and orders. While accepting an order, it must ensure that the toy being ordered is available in the store, that is, the items table. After each order for a particular item, the quantity available should be reduced by the ordered quantity for that item. Say for example, for a new order ID S5 for purchasing 3 quantities of the item having item ID 2, a row with order ID S5, quantity S3 and item ID S2 has been added as shown in the orders table. This item ID in the orders table acts as a foreign key and it references to the primary key item ID in the items table. Since the item ID is 2 in the orders table, and when it references to the items table with item ID as 2, the corresponding item name is Chinese checker in the items table. Just have a look in the items table. For the item ID as 2, the corresponding item name is Chinese checker in the items table. Now, since 3 quantities of that item having item ID as 2 has been ordered and is represented by quantity as 3 in the orders table, so the corresponding quantity available whose value was 12 in the items table for the item ID as 2 will be deducted by 3, as 3 quantities of that item was ordered. Hence, updating the value to 12 minus 3, which gives 9 as the new value for quantity available. Before I show you the example of a transaction, you must first note down these key points of transaction. The first one is start transaction or begin, which starts a new transaction. That means every transaction that you create should start with the line start transaction or begin. Secondly, once a transaction has been completed, it should end with commit. That means commit commits the current transaction, making its changes permanent. Once the transaction has successfully completed, all the changes will be made permanent, and that is done with the help of the commit word. In case any error occurs or the transaction fails, then all the changes made in the database are undone, and that is called as rollback. So rollback will undo the current transaction and it will cancel the changes made by the current transaction. Let's recapitulate the key points again. Every transaction should start with the line start transaction or begin. Once the transaction executes successfully, all the changes will be made permanent with the help of the word commit. In case any error occurs or the transaction fails, all the changes made in a database are undone, which is called rollback. Consider this example based on transaction. The table's items and orders before the transaction is shown as in this slide. There are 4 orders as represented by order ID 1, 2, 3 and 4 respectively in the orders table. Now, if we try to add a new order with order ID as 5 for 3 quantities of item ID 2, the transaction is shown below. As you can see in this slide, the transaction begins with the start transaction and it consists of 2 SQL statements. The first one is the insert statement and the second one is the update statement. Both these SQL statements are combined together and executed as a single unit of work. As a result, they act as one. That's why it's called as a transaction, as it executes multiple SQL statements as a single unit of work. After executing these statements, the transaction ends and the changes have been reflected permanently in the database with the help of the commit statement. As a result, the commit statement ends this transaction successfully. Just check this slide. Once the transaction ends successfully, you will see that a new record with order ID as 5 has been added into the table orders using the insert statement in the transaction. And since it is ordering for only 3 quantities of the item having item ID as 2, so in the items table for the item ID as 2, the quantity available has been reduced by 3, and that gives 12 minus 3, which is 9, and that is done by the update statement in the transaction.